Sugar's gonna get you. That's why you eat the testicles.
What? We're getting really specific on this episode of Recliner Reviews. This is not a movie. This is a 23-minute bundle of laughs. That is...
I got news for you. If we're making this movie, we got to get a table immediately.
All right, look it. Let's stop fooling around. Let's just slip him some money.
In a Chinese restaurant, do they take money?
Do they take money?
Season 2, Seinfeld, one of the best episodes of all time, Chinese restaurant. There are a million factoids about this, but it's one of the most quotable, it's one of the most memorable, it's one of the most referenced, but it came out at a time when the show almost got canceled every single week.
Yep.
Sorry, you're canceled.
Like week by week, it almost got canceled, and they pitched this idea for this episode, Larry David, Jerry Seinfeld, and said, we want to do this episode, blah, blah, blah. People at NBC read the script. They said, this is fucking stupid. It makes no sense. It's all in one location. Nothing happens. Like, fuck this. And Larry David's like, no, we're doing it.
Shut up, bitch!
He's like, fine. NBC's like, fine, you can do it. But when people hate the show, like, it's on you when the show gets canceled.
He wanted to do it early in the season, too.
Well, because
it was supposed to be, like, right out of the gate.
Yeah, this is part of the original idea for the show. So after Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld pitched Seinfeld, they went out to a Chinese restaurant after, and they waited for a table for a long time, and Larry's like, this should be a show.
Yeah.
Which is also a line in season 4 when they're talking about creating their own pilot, and George is like, this should be the show.
This should be the show. This is the show.
What?
This. Just talk.
Yeah, right.
Well, they did, I mean, the one in season 4 was making fun of NBC.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
it was a whole parody because of this whole thing.
At that point, they are over the mountaintop.
Yeah.
They can do stuff like that. But yeah, the Chinese restaurant is almost, NBC thought would tank the show, and it is my top 5, top 10.
Can I confess something to you? And I know we've talked about this. Until recently, I was not a big Seinfeld fan.
Shut up, bitch!
When Seinfeld originally came out, I had watched it because it was part of, like, must-see TV.
All new NBC Thursday.
For the younger viewers, NBC had a whole thing on Thursday nights where it was like you would just watch from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock. Well, 10 o'clock really, because ER was on at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock for an hour stretch. Seinfeld at the anchor of 8 o'clock. 8:30 there was usually some terrible show that would come in and out that would
one that's always
never
canceled.
survive.
Yeah.
The 7 o'clock hour was tough. Because for a while there, it was Empty Nest, I think is what the name of the show was. But the 7:30 was always tough because then you were leading into Seinfeld and people kind of waned, and it kind of goes like this. But Seinfeld anchoring that 8 o'clock hour. 8 o'clock to 8:30, Seinfeld. I'd still watch it, and I would watch it, and it was okay.
Shut up, bitch!
I had a problem with Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, that's fine. I can get on board with that.
The problem was I didn't think he was funny. I was like, I don't like Jerry's character. I don't like that.
I'm not even going to push back on this.
And so many people said to me, well, but he's the straight man.
Yeah.
He's the straight man in all this. I was like, I don't care if he's the straight man. Like, it's not funny. Like, this is his show, right? And, you know, he leads it off with standing against the brick wall and telling some jokes. And I was like, this is just not funny to me. Like, I thought that George was funny, Elaine was funny, Kramer was goofy, wacky, you know, whatever. It was okay. Like, it was just okay to me. So for a while there, I did not watch Seinfeld. Like, even in, like, reruns, like, there was, you know, all the different channels that would try, like, and get it as reruns, and then they would put it in syndication or whatever. Like, Fox had it for a while.
Oh, yeah. That's how I watched it. It was on Fox every single day, 6 and 6:30.
Yeah.
Simpsons was on at 5 and 5:30.
Yep.
King of the Hill was on at 4:30. I don't know why I remember this. This is fucking weird.
I mean, but I was the same way. Like, I would watch The Simpsons, and then, Seinfeld's on, off. Like,
really?
We're done. Like, I just was in reruns. So, like, I watched it first run. I watched all of those episodes first run. And in fact, actually, at the time, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was...
Keep my name out your fucking mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
I think at the very early part of the show, it was Empty Nest. And then Fresh Prince of Bel-Air became popular, and that became the 7 o'clock hour show, if I'm remembering correctly. And Empty Nest was John Larroquette was in it. He was the, like, anchor of the show, if I'm remembering this correctly. It was set in Florida.
I've never seen it. I love sitcoms, though, too. Even if they're not good comedy, I can gravitate toward a sitcom.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Kevin James movie. I can jump into any network sitcom. I watch, like, I love King of Queens, which I think is actually a good show. Seinfeld. I love The Norm Show, early 2000s, late 90s. I could even watch Rules of Engagement, which was Happy Madison, I believe, produced it. It was David Spade, Patrick Warburton. It's not good at all, but I could just jump into an episode and be like, yeah, this is comfort
Yeah.
TV. We watched, in college, we had watch parties for this really terrible sitcom called...
Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
No, it was Young and Hungry.
Daddy loves you so much, sweet pineapple.
Which is it's streaming somewhere now. It's really bad. Like,
I don't even
aggressively
recall.
bad.
I don't even recall.
It was-
I mean, this is beyond my...
This came out in like 2013, probably.
Yeah, so
And
I
it-
probably was not watching sitcoms very much.
Sure, yeah, and it was on TBS or something. We watched all the TBS sitcoms. It was that, Ground Floor, I think Men at Work, maybe. There was like a bunch of, they were all bad, but Young and Hungry was so bad that we invited all of our friends over and we drank and watched Young and Hungry before it got canceled after a few weeks.
That sounds fun. That sounds...
Yeah, but I miss, so I have a point on what you said about Seinfeld, but I don't want to miss the network thing. I miss the concept of having to wait for a show every week.
Yeah.
The last one that I had that with was Louis C.K.'s show, Louis on FX. Every Monday, it was appointment television. Had to be watching it on Monday because the show wasn't available on streaming yet either.
You didn't have a TiVo?
No, I have one now. Came with the cable package.
Which is funny because TiVo is like defunct at this point, I
Right,
think.
right.
But like I remember having a TiVo and doing that and like recording like 24, Kiefer
Sure.
Sutherland, right? Like and like there were those shows. Like if I was going out or I had a meeting or I had a whatever, I was TiVoing certain shows so that I could watch them.
But I kind of like the idea of being there for it. I don't know if I could.
Well,
Then
yeah,
it's
I mean,
appointment
yeah.
TV. It's kind of, there's something special about it.
I mean, I also remember too, in the day, if you couldn't watch a certain certain show, you put it in the VHS and you recorded it.
I remember that too.
Like I remember doing that with.
I had a Raiders of the Lost Ark. My family did. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Every time we watched the movie or wanted to watch the movie, we watched a VHS of my dad had taped it on TNT or something.
Whopper, 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 Whopper.
It was like the mid-90s. So anytime we wanted to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, so it was a combo VHS that had A New Hope and Raiders of the Lost Ark because they were back to back on TNT or something when my dad recorded it. So I always in my head associated Indiana Jones as coming in tandem with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Probably because Harrison Ford too.
Yeah,
But I had
yeah.
this combo VHS that had A New Hope and Indiana Jones.
I recall very similar things. But back to the like, I didn't appreciate, just like I talked about before. Like I didn't appreciate Norm Macdonald too,
Right.
on Saturday Night Live and when he was doing Weekend Update until fairly recently, when I went back and watched it again, and I was like, this is actually pretty genius. I can get behind this now. And it's kind of the same thing with Seinfeld. Like, there's still some things to it that I'm like, I don't really like some of these elements to it.
It's a little dated too.
But I'll be able to watch it and be able to be like, okay, I can appreciate this now. And I see now after the fact, after having watched Curbed, being like, okay, you know, George Costanza and Larry David, like the same. I mean, I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here by saying that they're the same person, but I can appreciate that now.
Right. But your point about Jerry Seinfeld is actually, I'm kind of in agreement I have like a love-hate relationship with Jerry Seinfeld. Gave me my favorite TV show of all time. I've seen him live. I think he's a very good joke writer, a very good comedian. He's like the Mike Ditka of comedy. He is cashing in continuously on one idea that, unlike Mike Ditka, who actually had a hand in that championship, Jerry Seinfeld had a very small, he was executive producer for the last 2 seasons, which are garbage. Mm-hmm. And he was the writer, and he like worked on crafting the stories. I'm not saying he had no role. But without Larry David, without casting perfectly Michael Richards, Jason Alexander, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, even Wayne Knight, like the whole cast is perfect, and that carried him to that fame. Like, he was a good comic in the 80s. Like, his stand-up was really good. But he's released 3 comedy specials now that are recycled material from the 80s. The last one was like Seinfeld before Seinfeld, where he talked about himself before he was famous, and he just did his old jokes.
It's like my little gay closet moment. Mom, Dad, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm a funny person.
And then Comedians in Cars was great. I loved it. And now he's doing a Comedians in Cars and in Coffee book about the show. He just like cashes in. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
And he sold Seinfeld to Netflix, and he has all the syndication deals and blah, blah, blah. He had like half of a good idea carried by other people, in my opinion. And he's just cashing it on over and over again. And like, he has this lore as one of the greatest comedians of all time. And when people make fun of comedy cadence, they're doing Seinfeld, and what's the deal? They're doing an impression of Seinfeld. Yeah. So like, that's a huge compliment to him. But he really had this one thing, and it just lived off. And I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, well, you don't classify B movie.
I
as
love
a part
B
of that
movie
too, right? Like that.
I love B movie.
And don't y'all date your cousins?
That's separate. So I think that
he had 2 good ideas. He's also working on a movie right now called Unfrosted, about the invention of the Pop-Tart.
Interesting.
It's filming right now. It's him, Jim Gaffigan, Kyle Dunnigan. There's a bunch of people in the movie.
Interesting. Yeah. I haven't heard anything about that, but
so he's had 3 ideas, 4 ideas.
I mean, I just, there's something about, I think maybe like that turns me off is like his cadence and like certain elements to his comedy. It's not that the jokes aren't funny. There's just something that's just not, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. And that's why I had for so long been like, I'm not a fan of Seinfeld. Don't like it. Now I'll watch it and be like, okay, I can appreciate this.
Is this just your rabid anti-Semitism?
I mean, that could be the anti-Semitism.
No, I get it though. There's something kind of grating about him, and just the whole aesthetic in the 90s too. He's not that funny on the show. He is the straight man.
Yeah, he's the straight man. I mean, that's...
Michael Richards is hilarious.
Yeah.
George is hilarious, and even I've grown to appreciate how funny Elaine, like hilariously funny.
Yeah.
But this episode in particular, even in this episode, that rings true. He doesn't really do much other than be the foil to Elaine wanting to leave, and he's the confidant to George talking about his girlfriend not showing up.
Yeah.
So he's literally just a straight man.
Yeah. And he also gets something wrong too. Talk about bad writing, right? In this episode, he mentions that he has a sister. And then the sister never gets mentioned ever again.
My brother to my sister, yeah.
My uncle to my cousin to my sister to me.
Never gets mentioned ever again in the entire series.
Yep.
So I don't know if you can blame him or you blame Larry David for it.
A continuity thing. Yeah, because at that point, they don't know if the show, how long it's going to last, if it's going to be a hit. So they just, things like that, they forget about all the time. George mentions that he's a brother in one of the early episodes. It never comes up again.
Yeah.
This is the only episode to not have Michael Richards in it.
2 episodes. There's 2 episodes.
Loser! You're a loser!
That don't have Michael Richards in it. I didn't write down which the other one was, but it's later on in the series. And the only reason why he wasn't in this one was Larry David said because
he never leaves his
apartment. So there was one other one. Everything I had read about this was like, this was the first of 2 episodes that did not have Kramer in it.
Later episode. That's gonna bother. That's gonna keep me up.
I mean, we'll look at it. We can look at it afterwards.
That's gonna bother me. I thought this was.
It's gonna pop up on the screen which other episode it is that he was not in.
I'm just gonna think about it for the rest of the episode so we can get it.
Now it's in your head.
But he was pissed that he wasn't in this one.
Yeah.
Because he thought it was groundbreaking. Because he had the foresight to know that it was great.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole show is extremely relatable, observational comedy. waiting for a table at a restaurant. What is the longest you've ever waited for a table at a
That's
restaurant?
exactly what I was going to ask, was like, how long would you wait? Not like how long have you waited, but like how long would you wait?
Short. So I think the pandemic pushed this to me. I don't go pretty much anywhere without a reservation anymore, like a restaurant.
For sure.
Because even if it's a time where we might get in, it's fine. I'm like, that's just to be safe. It's not going to hurt us to make a reservation.
Yeah.
So now I'm always making reservations. The longest, I know this wasn't your question, but the longest I think I've waited, one time at Au Cheval, waited like 4 hours. We went somewhere else and had a drink, whatever.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, a few years ago, this restaurant called Palm Court
Okay.
in Palatine.
Okay.
We call it an old people restaurant. For no reason, I don't understand why. Maybe they have good deals at 4 o'clock. A lot of old people eat there, but the food is really good and it's classy. It has like a nice, classy ambiance.
Hi, Billy Mays here for Palm Court, the only restaurant you'll ever need, guaranteed or your money back. Get your old ass over here for our daytime specials for just 2 easy payments of $19.95.
And I like going there. It's like I'm the youngest person by 60 years, so it's kind of fun. But we were there on Christmas Eve, and it's really popular with the olds on Christmas Eve. So there's all these old people, and we had a reservation, I think, too, and they just way overbooked it.
Yeah.
And all these old people are screaming at the host. There was one guy who got in his ear and said, "You ruined my Christmas," and another guy like pushed him out of the way and said, "Hey, back off, it's not his fault."
Shut up, bitch!
It was chaos. And that was the most chaotic scene I've ever seen, waiting for a table. How long would I wait now? I don't think I'd wait very long, like 20 minutes is pushing it.
I mean, so how long I have waited, probably the most was at Kuma's.
That's fair.
Back in the day, Kuma's, a 3-hour wait was not out of the question.
Yeah, Au Cheval's like that.
Depending on when you went. The only time I've actually been to Au Cheval, not saying it didn't like it, like I did like it. I left work early to go get in line, and so we only waited like 15, 20 minutes or something like that, because I got
pretty good.
there at like 4:45. And we were doing it because we were going to a Blackhawks game later that night. And so it was like, okay, well, we're just going to go someplace in the West Loop, and then we're going to go.
I went at like 9:30 once, and I still had to wait an hour.
I mean, that was like, back in the day at Kuma's, the original Kuma's, when there was only one Kuma's, the one on Belmont, that was like, if you didn't go right at the opening, and if you went right at the opening, you had to get there early too. Like, you had to wait. So like they would open at like 10 o'clock in the morning on the weekends. You would have to get there by like 9 if you wanted to be like, and this was during the hype of, we mentioned it in another episode about burgers, and like, have you been to Kuma's?
Yeah.
So like, you know, their whole shtick, everybody wanted to be a part of it, and the one on Belmont was so small that like you had to get in line for it, or you had to go late. So you either had to be willing to eat, you had to be willing to eat at like 9:30, or you had to be willing to stay and wait in line and get there early and wait in line for it. Which is just
I
like,
don't do that anymore. It's genius and also frustrating, these places that don't take reservations or are so small that they generate. It's almost like generating like false hype because you don't take a reservation. Like, Kuma's is great, Au Cheval's great, but if you don't have a reservation and you get a reputation as being a place that has a 4-hour wait, it creates a little bit more buzz.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it, but I also, fuck off. Like, I hate these places. Like, just
I hate
over
that.
yourself.
Like, I'm not a big fan of waiting, and so like, you're right, getting a reservation, that's the thing now. The only time I think probably in the past 5 years, 6 years, that I didn't do that was we were in Indianapolis for the Loyola Sweet 16 game.
And it's Chris Lentino at the buzzer, and he scored.
After the game, we were like, all right, where are we going to go eat? Let's go find some place to eat. And there were like 2 or 3 places that were on whatever the main street is that's in Indianapolis there. And one of them was like a Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. So we went in there, and they're like, oh, it's going to be 45 minutes. I was like, fuck, 45 minutes. I don't want to wait 45 minutes for Buffalo Wings. So we were like, we put our name in, and they're like, okay, we'll call you if, you know, when it opens up. Then we went down the street to like 2 other places, and they're like, oh, it's like 45 minutes. Fuck, it's like an hour. It's like what? I'm like, I don't want to wait that long. Like, I just as soon like go eat McDonald's and get diarrhea and go back to the hotel room than wait 45 minutes for not even like going to like Au Cheval or someplace like that. It's like 45 minutes for Buffalo Wild Wings. Like, no offense to Buffalo Wild Wings, but 45 minutes for Buffalo Wild Wings, that's too much.
It is a very satisfying moment, though, when you are on a wait list at a restaurant and you get a text or you have the little old school buzzer thing and it goes,
Yeah.
and it's like, and Elaine says it in the thing, like, I've been chosen.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, she's like looking around at people like, oh, it feels so like great, you've been chosen. You feel like you've been chosen.
Yeah. And you're like walking past everybody that's sitting there, people. Like, yeah.
It's kind of satisfying.
I mean, she does say that the first come first serve rule is kind of bogus. It should be who's hungriest.
It should be based on who's hungriest.
How do you determine who's hungriest, right? Like,
well, that's the absurdity of it.
I mean, I'd be curious to know what your metric is for who's hungriest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand the absurdity of it, but like, what is the metric of who's the hungriest? You go like, man, I haven't eaten in 17 hours. I'm the hungriest. Or like, I'm accustomed to eating every hour, so like, I haven't eaten in 3 hours, so I'm the hungriest.
A restaurant could just make everything market price and judge by who's hungriest, who like an auction for food.
Oh, that would be there's an idea for a restaurant for you that you can do.
That's another idea for a restaurant.
Where like everybody gets a little paddle and they can bid on, like whatever it is, and then you gotta. The other thing is that you gotta play it kind of smart, right? Because you see like a steak comes up. You're like, ooh, that steak looks good, but ooh, I'm gonna roll the dice. Let's see what happens. And then the next thing comes out is like testicles from Liver King, right?
Liver King is having about one entire testicle a day.
So you're stuck like, oh shit, I wanted that steak, but I can't eat the steak. Now I'm stuck with testicles and eating testicles because that was all that's left.
We can call it like the ration grill or something.
Yeah. I like that.
Like the third world.
Yeah. This is a great idea. And by great idea, I mean terrible idea, but yeah. The one thing about this episode that Jerry wants to go see the movie of Plan 9 from Outer Space.
They've come from the bowels of hell, a transformed race of walking dead.
I'm always astounded that Mystery Science Theater 3000 did not do this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because like they're accustomed to doing terrible, terrible movies, including one of my favorite ones, other than Hamlet, which is pretty hilarious. If you haven't seen the Mystery Science Theater 3000 Hamlet, watch it. They did one with a movie with Kathy Ireland before Kathy Ireland became famous. I don't know. Do you know Kathy Ireland? Who Kathy Ireland is?
I know of her, but
she is a supermodel that I like to think that, and this is what I've told myself, it's probably not true, but in this movie she's got this really high squeaky voice, and because I saw this movie at a younger age, the Mystery Science Theater 3000 lambasting of it, I told myself that's her real voice. And when she became famous, she had vocal coaching that taught her how to speak in a normal register. And that's what I told myself, and I believe to this day that was Kathy Ireland's voice. I don't know if it was actually her voice or not, but that's what I tell myself.
Funny. Have you heard like Brian Bumgarner?
Yeah.
His real voice? Kevin from The Office.
I mean, it sounds kind of similar, but like not the like monotone drone that Kevin has.
Much deeper, yeah. But it's so jarring when you hear his voice.
Yeah, if I'm standing with Kevin Nealon and people are like, Kevin, and I turn around and he's like, no, they're talking to me, you idiot.
Yeah.
Or James Gandolfini's real voice. Like there's these people that you hear their voices and it's just extraordinary. Like you didn't realize they weren't their character.
Yeah. We should do some Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I watched a little bit of it when I was a kid, but I haven't watched it in forever.
We apparently they have their own channel on Apple TV that like you can then watch like all of the Mystery Science Theater 3000 catalog. And so my brother-in-law was in town a couple weeks ago, and we were like, let's watch a Mystery Science. Let's drink and watch a Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so we I forget which one we had put on, we had to scroll through all of the seasons, include the original casting of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and then the newer casting of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And so, like, we sat there and watched Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a good show. It's funny. They made a movie, too.
Yeah. My last point on this episode is, would you do the bet that Jerry gives Elaine and says, would you take an egg roll off their table for $50?
I feel like just walking over there and taking some food off of somebody's plate.
I'll tell you what. There's $50 in it for you if you do it.
It depends on how much. So, like,
$50.
If the bet, well, are we talking $50 in 1991 dollars, or are we talking $50 in 2023 dollars?
So by you asking that, I'm assuming your answer for 2023 dollars would be no.
If it's $50?
Yeah.
I mean,
I have too much shame. You could offer me $300. I don't think I'd do it.
I would, if I knew that we probably weren't going to be eating there because of how long it was taking.
If we're going to leave right away?
Hell yeah, I'd do it.
I don't know.
Maybe even not if we were waiting there the entire time.
I have a fantasy walking. I think about it every time it's the summer and we're walking down the sidewalk and there are people eating outside. There's a bar by my house that I think about this a lot with. People are eating outside, having a good time, of just taking a French fry or a nacho or something and just taking it as I walk by, hoping that it gives those people a story that they'll tell for the rest of their lives and they think it'd be funny. But I never.
They definitely wouldn't think it was funny. It could be a story that they tell for the rest of their lives. I don't think they think it's funny, especially in the like post-pandemic era where it's like this random dude walked by with his grubby ass hands and grabbed a fry off of my plate. Like they're not going to look at it so lovingly. Like I'm sure there are ways to make it funny, but not just walking by and grabbing a fry and being like, "All right, deuces, I got a fry."
I don't have the guts to do it anyway. My only other point on that is she goes to the table and somebody goes, "What did she say?" Flair David's voice.
Yeah.
What did she say? Someone tell me what she said.
Dude, I fucking hate Jerry Seinfeld.